What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with reactions to the classics. Today we got a reaction to Montrose and their self-titled debut album, brought to us by a friend, longtime supporter and patron of the channel, Trucker Kev. Thank you, Kev. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, check out that Patreon link below or the Patron link on the end screen. We could not do it without the patrons running a free trial. Go check it out. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I've never even heard of Montrose. I mean, maybe I've heard it as Sammy Hagar's originating foray into the recording industry, but I don't think I've ever even heard of them. But I just researched this album. Kev just sent it to me, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this right now because it sounds fantastic. So Kev has some thoughts, as he always does, because he knows a lot about music, and obviously he chose this album, so he's going to know a ton about it. He said, well, here we go, one of the most legendary hard rock, borderline heavy metal albums ever. It still stands up amazingly to this day. It still has an amazing following of people who speak highly of it. And it also has a young vocalist at the time who would go on to big things by the name of Sam Hagar. You can go by Sammy then. Studio session guitarist Ronnie Montrose, who had been banging around with a lot of other bands and making appearances all over, formed this band. It wasn't successful on its release, despite the amazing reviews that it garnered. But over the years, it's become to be beloved by rockers everywhere. There's so many standout tracks on this album, many that Sammy has brought along with him that he does in concert through the years after leaving for a solo career. Produced by the great Ted Templeman, who at this time had the Doobie Brothers under his wing, he hadn't quite yet discovered Van Halen, but he would. Ronnie's Rock the Nation started it out on a high note and just gives you a vibe of what you're going to be in for. Backed by the powerhouse not only of rhythm guitar from Sammy and lead-crushing licks from Ronnie, you also have Denny Carmisi and Bill Church. But Sammy's songwriting definitely does shine on timeless classics. Bad Motor Scooter, The Great Space Station No. 5, and of course on side 2, who could forget the amazing guitar crunch and riff-rocking excellence of Rock Candy? Another classic is Sammy's Make It Last. The amazing thing, though, under all this awesomeness is that this album barely clocks in over a half hour. Yeah, it's only 32 minutes. But man, what a half hour it is. This is an album I've rocked with since high school. I still rock with this to this day. I never get tired of it. Every song's a classic. I don't have any favorites and have a very high rating on this one of 9.25. This is still just an amazing piece of rock history, in my opinion. Great write-up. I won't be too redundant on this, but I did some research. They were an American hard rock band formed in 1973, so when this album comes out, and named after guitar and founder Ronnie Montrose. The original lineup, I mean, Kev mentioned this, I'll just reiterate it. We got Sammy, we got bassist Bill Church, drummer Denny Carmasi. The band experienced moderate success before disbanding in early 1977, although Sammy left in 75. They only had 5 studio albums. This one was produced by Ted Templeman. I'll get into that in a minute. Montrose, as we mentioned, Montrose is Ronnie Montrose's first record leading his own band after having done session work for various musicians, including Herbie Hancock, Edgar Winter, and Van Morrison. The album was not successful upon release. Went to 133 in the US and 42 in the UK. Rock Candy and Bad Motor Scooter were the only tracks to receive radio airplay. It's been reported that the band's label, Warner Brothers, did not know how to market Montrose, already having the Doobie Brothers and Deep Purple, in their opinion, that covered the rock genre. They saw the band as something of a redundancy on their roster of artists. So it's like, why did you sign him? Why didn't you let him go somewhere else? But in 1974, the album was issued in Europe via Germany under the title Rock the Nation. This release duplicated the track listing of the US, but they made one change. Instead of having the picture of the group on the album cover, they replaced it with that of a large busted blonde girl sporting a pink see-through blouse. They eventually proved to be an international sleeper, imagine that, and they ended up selling over 1 million copies of this album. Some critics have arguably labeled it, quote, the first American heavy metal album. Often being cited as America's answer to Led Zeppelin, it's held to be influential among hard rock and heavy metal musicians. It was voted as the 4th best metal album of all time by Kerrang! Magazine back in 1989, and that same year Hit Parader named it within the top 100 heavy metal albums of all time. It clearly had an impact on Hagar's future Van Halen bandmates, who covered its closing track Make It Last during the early club days, then hired the same producer, Ted Templeman, and engineer Don Landy to work on their debut album. Now, whether they hired him or they were hired by the record company, but we won't get into all that. After all these years, Hagar still looks back very fondly on Montrose. He said this, yes, I do feel a lot of stuff for that album, he told Ultimate Classic Rock. And when I hear something like Rock Candy or Make It Last, you know, God, I just sound like this young kid. I just can't believe that I'm as old as I am when I hear it, because I don't feel any different. All right. Music's not going to be in the video, but it'll be at a Vimeo link below. Click on that and follow along with us. Let's jump into it with the first track, Rock the Nation. And I have not heard any of these songs, but I mean, I'm obviously familiar with Sammy Hagar. Some of his solo work, all of his Van Halen or Van Hagar work. And look, I know people that like throw all these darts at Van Halen when they had Sammy and, you know, the synth driven of one of the albums, but or really two of them. But here's the thing. That was the style of music in the mid 80s. It wasn't that Sammy changed them. Instead, everyone went with that sound if they wanted to be commercially successful. And the synth was all over Jump, their biggest hit that really put them on the map mainstream with David Lee Roth in there. I'm not a huge fan of David Lee Roth, meaning I'm not a fan of his at all. I think he's highly, highly, highly overrated as a vocalist. I don't think he's a good vocalist at all. He's a great performer, and that's half of it. You don't have to have a great vocalist when you sing that type of music. But I just want to get it out of the way. I much prefer Sammy. I'll get that out of the way. I will welcome all the comments below where you don't agree with that. I get it. But let's go to the opening track. I'm going to have the lyrics up as always. Thanks again, Trucker Kev. All right, Rock the Nation. A really good song to start out your first album, right? I always talk about this debut album, first song. What's the first thing we ever hear from you? Rock the Nation. I mean, it totally fits with where this band is going, I have a feeling, and through all the research. Sammy sounds great, you know. Ronnie's guitar work is fantastic. It's a good old-fashioned rock and roll song, you know. He says in the chorus, my work is done, I'm ready to go rock the nation. So let's do it, man. I'm here for it. Next up, we have Bad Motor Scooter. Along with Rock Candy, it's arguably the band's best-known song. Its introduction, a distorted electric slide guitar sound, which emulates that of a revving motorcycle, became the defining component of the song. When it was conceived before this guitar sound, the band and producer Ted Templeman were not happy with it because they felt it was missing a hook that would make it stand out. Ronnie stumbled upon it while messing with a slide and fuzz box one day in the studio. Playing his guitar in open D tuning, Montrose improvised what became the motorcycle sound. Although Templeman and the engineer I talked about earlier, Don Landy, kept him going when they failed to get the recording tape rolling. Can you imagine? Oh, that was great. Oh, wait a minute. Hit it. Keep going. Keep doing it. Don't lose it. All right. A decade later, a little more than that, Motley Crue would borrow this sound for Kickstart My Heart. That's the first thing I thought of when I heard this. And I hate to, I mean, you might love Motley Crue if you do. I'm sorry for the statement. And I'm sorry. Okay, I'll stop. But just a great song, man. Sammy sounds great. The confidence that Sammy has. This is a Sammy song. Ronnie wrote the first song, Rock the Nation, the only song that Sammy's not a writer or co-writer on this, except for a cover, which we'll get to. But good story. But just, I think, obviously the guitar work is going to be next level, I think, on all of this. But Sammy's vocal delivery on here kind of makes the song. And we got Space Station number 5, written by Sammy and Ronnie. All right, Space Station number 5. Fantastic guitar, but also fantastic production. So far, these first 3 songs, they don't sound dated at all, but the production, crystal clear. The guitar work, the panning right there to give me that space sensation. Fantastic song as well. I mean, the bass work comes through on this one as well. It was Bill Church, who got fired after this album, by the way. Sammy gets fired later on the concert tour. That's a whole nother story that I won't get into, although I just kind of did. Yeah, I mean, these first 3 songs are absolutely banging. Let's finish out the traditional side 1 with I Don't Want It, also Ronnie and Sammy on composition here. All right, I Don't Want It, a paint by the numbers rock and roll song in a very good way. It's real simple. Well, I gave love a chance and it blanked back in my face, and I quit my job making toothpicks out of logs. You know, it's getting thin when your friends turn you in. Better sock away your bread. There's a worse time ahead. And I don't want it. Not today. No, I don't need it. So take it away. Yes, get along out of here. Flowers make me sneeze. Praying hurts my knees. Funerals make me cry, and I don't want to die. Getting high is a gas, but staying high, I'll pass. Going to school is all right, but teachers are uptight. We just kind of go on from there with the chorus. But well written. Good way to finish out the side. Like I said, it's a standard rock and roll song in the best kind of way. Start out side 2 with Good Rockin' Tonight, which I'm going to give you some background on this song because it's incredibly important. Not their version, but the song itself is incredibly important in rock and roll lore. It's a jump blues song originally released in 1947 by its writer, Roy Brown, and was covered by many recording artists. The song includes a memorable refrain, "Well, I heard the news, there's good rockin' tonight." The song anticipated elements of rock and roll music. Some reviewers state that Brown's version, or Wynonie Harris, depending on the source, is one of the contenders for the title of, quote, the first rock and roll record. Elvis famously did this song. It was his second single. So that put it on the map. And then Pat Boone, who was very famous in the 50s, like incredibly successful on the charts, he did a version of it. And when Led Zeppelin singer Robert Plant recorded an EP with some friends in 1984 calling the band the Honey Drippers, I had that EP A 13-year-old Sean didn't love that EP, especially See a Love, but that's another story. He focused on a, quote, roots of rock sound. The EP, The Honey Drippers Volume 1, featured the renamed Rocking at Midnight as its first single with a strong boogie-woogie feel. It reached number 25 on the Billboard Hot 100. So lots of history on this song. Interesting they decided to start out side 2 with it. Let's go. All right, good rocking tonight. Let me tell you something. That was highly impressive on 2 accounts. Obviously, to state this, the blatantly obvious, Ronnie's guitar work on here was next level. But Sammy's vocals on here were really good as well. I mean, it pushed him. You can tell he's 26 years old this time. It pushed him, and it wasn't always fantastic. But singing these types of songs are very difficult. Like, it's a very underrated thing. Some songs in 1947, but being able to get after it like this, it's not the easiest thing to do, and definitely different than the vocal delivery and style that Sammy had on the other songs. That you get to get into it a little more. You get to ease into it. This, you got to get after it. But it was really, really impressive by everybody. We get to Rock Candy, attributed to everyone as writers in the band. It's the last song written and recorded for the album. It's composed by, is well known for its distinctive drum intro, played by Denny, of course. According to Ronnie in radio interviews, the song originated from Denny's experimentation with alternatives to Led Zeppelin drummer John Bonham's intro to When the Levee Breaks. According to Hagar, Rock Candy is like a standard for bands like Def Leppard or The Cult. Over the years, anybody who wants to jam with me wants to jam Rock Candy. Chad Smith, Joe Satriani, Matt Sorum, Slash, Lemmy from Motorhead came up to me at a show in England, and what did Lemmy say? Effing Rock Candy, mate. Now, Canadian rocker Lee Aaron, who's not known much out of Canada, covered this song in her album Body Rock. I bring that up because I actually reviewed that album last year. I don't know if I'll remember her version of it when I hear this version of it. I can see how this is so influential in 1973, man. Just getting after it, man. The guitar work on here is next level. Sammy's got the attitude on it, and every bit the way you want your lead vocalist to have. I thought the drumming was really good too, but like that riff just becomes infectious, right? It's 5 minutes and it could be 10. You don't see me saying that very often. All right, we got 2 songs left. We got One Thing on My Mind. All right, One Thing on My Mind. By far the weakest track on here for me. It's still fine. You could guess, I guess going in, the one thing on Sam's mind. And it wasn't the weather. All right, let's finish this thing off with Make It Last. All right, Make It Last. Not the best song on this album, but the best written song on this album. And the older you get, the more you realize how fantastically written it is. He said, well, I remember when I was 17, my father told me, pick your dreams. He said, life ain't as easy as it seems. When you get older, you'll see what I mean. All right, yeah, he says. At the time, I wanted to be 21. So he's 17, he wanted to be 21. Seemed the right age for having fun. But when I got there, I was still too young, and 25 seemed to be the one. Because that target keeps moving. There isn't a time, and a lot of times in our lives where we get to just be. He said, but now I live my life from day to day because I wouldn't have it any other way, whether I'm 12 or whether I'm 64. Spend my time like there ain't going to be no more. And just goes on and builds on this. It is so, so well written. And now we're going to get to my favorite tracks, which are challenging because there's 8 songs. I like them all. I threw a couple of them out. Honorable mentions, Good Rockin' Tonight, because I just thought they did such a good job on the vocals and the guitar work there. And Rock the Nation, the first track. Faves are going to be this last track, Make It Last. Rock Candy, of course, Space Station number 5, and Bad Motor Scooter. Now we'll get on to my overall score. Look, this stuff is, this is really, really well done. Like every song is really well done. And Kev alluded to it, it's only a little over half an hour. I think that helps it. I think 8 songs, a little over half an hour. The repeatability of this is just fantastic. You can throw it on, you're done with it in a little over half hour. And you can just spin it and spin it. And I think that helps some albums because you begin to know it more and more. If the album's an hour or longer, like we had in the 90s, it's like, golly, do I really want to dive into this? If you're a completionist and you want to complete the whole album, it's like, man, that's a long time. But this, 30 minutes, let's go. That's why you can throw on a lot of the Beatles' earlier work. It's 30 minutes, let's do it. So I think there's something to that. So my overall score on first listen is going to be an 8.5. I can see why it is so well thought of. So thank you to Kev for bringing me this masterpiece, because I didn't know it was out there, man. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know your favorite tracks down below. You can list 6 of the 8 like I did if you want to. I get it. And if you haven't already, give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, guys, I will see ya.